I had a traumatic, emotional, distraught time playing this game.
I won, but I was not congratulated.
Well,
I was attacked for about 30 minutes for winning. Hey folks, welcome to another week and review. My name is Jesse.
I'm Melissa.
And we're here to bring you some reviews of board games while we walk and talk about board games.
Woohoo!
These are the games that we played this week. Tell us about the games you played this week in the comments below, and let's get on with it.
So we started off the week, as we have been for the past few weeks, with our Monday My Island.
Yep.
It's progressing. It's getting more and more each week. I feel like it's growing, where I'm starting to see kind of development now. We're about at the halfway point. Actually,
I might want to turn around at this point. We're getting to the edge of this
ooh,
area.
The edge. All right.
Be a nice 360 shot for everybody too.
Yeah. I did give it a little bit of a bump this past week. It's up into the 7s for me.
It wasn't before.
It was at a 6.9 the last couple weeks. I wasn't quite giving it that 7 yet, but this past week it hit the 7 threshold. It's now sitting comfortably at a 7.
You don't feel like it was especially rough this week?
But I felt like there was better progress. The progression of it, the momentum, being at the halfway point, I'm seeing progress, so it made me feel more in it.
Some rules were left out, and I'll take the blame on that one. I'm just going to read every single word from now on. There are a lot of squirrels on this trip.
Oh yes, lots of squirrels.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'll let you know if something blows my mind. But right now, it's about the mild expectations set in this kind of legacy game. Which, if that's what you're expecting, it's fine. But you know, I'm not blowing my mind here.
Yeah, but we're at that halfway point, so we will definitely keep y'all updated on how it's going in weeks to come.
Did you ever go to Grandma's house and think, "Oh, look at this old wallpaper. This would make a great game"? Well, they did make that a game.
A game!
Yep, they made a game of it. It's called That Old Wallpaper. It's from AEG. Which direction do you want to go? They have the top of the hill.
Go to the hill.
All right.
Yeah, go to the top of the hill.
So That Old Wallpaper is a game where you're building a wallpaper pattern, I guess would be the best way to describe it. This is a new park for us, and I'm looking at all the new stuff. We got this bell here.
Look how cool.
Well, it's swinging. Why is it? How's it swinging?
I guess
on its
just
own?
wind. Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I doubt it.
Ooh,
There's the bell.
ring the bell.
Anyway, That Old Wallpaper. You're doing some set collection in it. You're doing some pattern matching in it. It has a cool way of scoring where they have like multiple patterns that are the same color, like 2 different blue patterns. You got to get both of them down in order to score a point. If you just have one, then you're not doing it. There's someone at the top of the hill, so we'll just leave them doing their thing. They have a cape.
Yeah, it's small in packaging as far as the box, but it does take a lot of table space in order to create your wallpaper patterns. So it might look like it's a small box game.
Show a little bit of the guy with the cape if he comes through, just so people know I'm telling the truth.
Ooh.
Why a cape? Who wears a cape?
His cape's in the wind, though. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it definitely does take up some table space, especially if you're playing a full-on, like we only have the 2-player, but if you're playing 3 or 4-player, might need some table room for it, just so you have optimal space to create as much wallpaper pattern as possible.
Yeah.
But it is really easy to bring around with you to like bring on a game, you know, game night, or to bring with you, like it stores really well.
Yeah, I think they went a small extra mile on it, giving you some foil patterns in this. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty cool that they included that. Was it necessary? Probably not.
But it does make for a nice change in the patterns, as far as like that is specifically wild compared to all the other color patterns.
Yeah. So one of the key things that they do in this game is you have a deck of cards numbered 1 through 10, and then they have the selection that's out in front of it, and you decide who gets what in that game based on the card you play. So if you play a 1, then you're getting the thing that's closest to the deck. If you play 10, you're probably getting the one furthest. It becomes an issue if people play the same card, because then there's some sort of battle going on where they have a predetermined who wins, and it cycles out. So if you won, you're not going to win the next one.
Yeah, and in a 2-player game, you have the kind of third player, so to say, and that's the grandma character. So grandma comes in and she just randomly plays a card. It just pulls off of the deck. It could be any number, you're not sure, and she's going to have a little tile just like the other players. So she could potentially beat you, or, you know, have a number that takes your card, but she doesn't care about points. So it's just kind of shuffles to the side and, you know, move the tile back or whatever. But it does make for an interesting thing when it's like, okay, well, I'm not sure if grandma's gonna block me, but I'm gonna try for it. And then when you go to play the card, and
or
it's like,
another
oh,
player
my
if you're playing
goodness.
with more than that.
Well, yeah, any player could block you. But at least you have an idea of, well, maybe what might they do? What is the strategy here? Grandma's just random. It's just like, whatever card, here you go. You know, so, you know, it adds a little bit of variety into it. But I still really...
The variety might be too much. I found myself blocked like 8 times, which isn't cool. We're going to take a duck break here for everyone. We got some ducks around here.
Look at them all.
Pretty cool duck break.
Yep.
But yeah, I thought this one was okay.
Yeah,
I won't be gunning to bring it out too often.
I gave it a rating of 6.8. Pretty solid standard number for the games that are good for me. I feel like I would very much play it again. I do like playing it
this way
at a higher player count, just for that variety of what numbers might come out, what chances of cards you might get. But I did like the 2-player variant with the grandma character, added some randomness to it.
Yeah, sometimes those 2-player variants are not great.
Yeah, it's a variant that I'm okay with. Like, there are some variants I'm like, oh, I don't really want to play 2-player if we have to play this variant. That one was okay.
I don't see much of a crosswalk here, so might be filming a crime. It's a Sunday. It's always been slow in this part of town, so we're just making our way around town.
Yeah, so I feel like it was a fun one to just kind of pull back out. We hadn't played it since PAX U, picked it up there, and so it was just nice to get it back out.
Played with some rules wrong at PAX U.
And it was nice to play it now with the corrected rules, so
yeah,
I feel like it was a good one to get back out and give another chance.
I gave this game a 6.4. I don't know how it's okay. It's just that random aspect of how you get the tiles in the beginning. I'm not a huge fan of that. So if I can, if there was some way to make it less random, maybe I'd be a bigger fan of something like that.
But if you want a game that reminds me of your, you know, grandparents' home with old wallpaper, it might be the game for you.
Yep.
This week, we finished out one of the 3 games of the Ryan Lockett trilogy of games with Now or Never.
Now or Never. Pretty much a sandbox kind of game where you're just walking around a countryside. But there is a story embedded in it, so it's important if you ever play this to read that entry story. I think it makes it a bit more interesting to play. And the story is that this town was devastated when a meteor fell and unleashed all these creatures. And then all the townspeople got split up all over the place. Years later, the creatures started getting weaker. And now it's your job to go wipe out the rest of the creatures. But more importantly, find all the townspeople, get them back together into the town and rebuild it. So yeah.
Yes, this is very active downtown.
Yeah, let's go back to our library. No. So the reason it's active today, we didn't know this, but there's a bit of a protest going on today.
Or maybe it's a rally or something. There's something on the
it's a
Capitol steps.
It's a peaceful protest.
Yes.
But funny enough, when we pulled up, I did not see that at all.
No, it's like they just came out of nowhere. Like, where'd all these where these people come from?
I support it though.
Yes. I liked the style of playing, different than the other two with above and below and near and far. Because in those, you really do concentrate more on that storybook where you're going to location, you have to open the book, you have to find the thing, you have to read the details, you got to figure out what you're going to do, say, are you going to choose this or this? But in this one, it's more about utilizing the board to move around, using what's already out and available to fight the monsters or to collect the different people that have been taken by the monsters. So that's really how you're getting these people back, is you're going to fight these monsters. If you win, you get people. If you get people, they might score you points or give you bonuses, you know. So I liked it more for the style of gameplay in this one versus any other ones I've played in these, like the trilogy of these Ryan Lochte style
RZM games, which is above and below, near and far. And this one, now or never.
And so this one I really did enjoy. One,
Show their message here. I mean, it's a far shot because we don't use zooms on these. Just to let you know they were here today.
Yep.
And now we got a truck driving up on what is a walk path. Who knew such chaos would happen from a walk-in review? No, it's not chaos.
No.
The truck is chaos, not the people.
But yeah, I did rate this highly, 7.1. That's pretty high for me on a first playthrough, but I've enjoyed the games in the past, and this one really did appeal to me the most of the different games of his. So really enjoyed this one this week. Good solid game for me.
Yeah, I gave this one a 7.7. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure what I'd think of it whenever we started. I know I like near and far the most of the three at first before this. But now it's been so long since I played near and far. I think I like this one the most of the three. All three are great.
Yeah.
I still haven't played Above and Below Haunted, which is like a retweaking of Above and Below. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I could see myself playing it again. I don't know about story mode. Just because
I kind of liked it without the story mode, to be honest.
Well, we haven't tried the story mode, but
I wouldn't be
not sure if it's one we
opposed to
would
it,
enjoy.
but I enjoyed it even without it.
In our city, we have these game nights. Not a lot of them for the population of the city, but one of them happens every Friday, and we like to drop in every once in a while. And so we got some new games played. The first one we're going to talk about is Rebirth from Reiner Knizia. This is a game where you're occupying Scotland or Ireland, but you're doing so by putting up castles. Theme, let's throw that away for a second because a lot of these, the theme is really hard to follow. This is a game of area control, for one. What else would you say this game is?
It's majorities. You're really trying to make sure that you have the majority around your certain pieces, because that's going to score you points. You're trying to make sure you create proper pathways. So it's like building one piece onto the next, making sure that you can like earn based on what you've already played. I'm not sure what mechanism that would be called, but you're like building and growing based on your past placement. And you just want to make sure that you have the most by the end, because only the person with the most or second most gets points. Anyone after that, 0. So you're just trying to make sure that you place correctly. So yeah, I mean, area control pretty much, sums it all up, really.
Yeah, and the way you put tiles out is you draw one from a big pile and you wait till your turn and you put it out.
Yep.
So I guess I'll lead with the things I didn't like. I didn't like that.
And see, I really did. That's so weird. Like, I like the randomness.
That feels like Carcassonne to me, which I know a lot of people like Carcassonne, but I would like Carcassonne with some choices, and this one doesn't do that for me. Another thing I didn't like is a lot of games suffer from this. We're going to talk about one later, but by the time your turn comes around, now you can take your turn, because you cannot really plan for it that much because the board state will change on you.
Oh yeah, because somebody might go and put out their cathedral piece or their castle piece or whatever the little tile that you randomly picked, and they put it out, and now that might have taken a place you would have gone, might have messed up your numbers because, well, I was going for this placement and now we're tied up, and ties don't matter. So, okay, now I've got to restructure my thoughts. So it's like, okay, now it's my turn. Now I can figure out what I'm going to do.
The things I did like, the graphics and everything look great. It's a lovely looking game.
The pieces were very solid. The little castle parts and the little cathedral part,
Yeah,
like those
they're all right.
pieces. The pieces were solid. The production was very nicely done as far as components, which can make or break a game, really. I mean,
Yeah.
components really matter when it's those tiny little, you know, I like this, but I don't like this. And that tiniest little thing could change based on, well, at least I like the way it looked on the table, you know? So I
feel like-
like the components.
I feel like this is a game that has a way that can win. So if you did have your choice of what to put down, you would win it every time, or it would be a really close score every time. But because you draw it out, then it really leans on luck too much, in my opinion. Take away the luck aspect of that, then you got a game where everyone's making the perfect move.
Yeah, it really is the luck of the draw, but if you draw and the luck's on your side, you might just make the most points at the end.
Yeah. So I give this one about 6.9.
And mine came in at a 6.7.
Okay. But yours is always a little higher than mine.
Ooh,
Here's the bell.
ring the bell.
Flipping 7 cards is challenging in Flip 7. But this is a game where you push your luck and often lose.
Yeah, you may bust a lot, but when you don't, there are big points to score.
Yeah, it's a simple game. The thing that makes it a game is the deck construction, because there's cards numbered 0 through 12, and the quantity of them in the deck is equal to the number shown on them, except of course 0 has 1. And in this game, you're just saying, hit me or stay.
Yes.
And your goal, you want to get 7 flipped that are unique, because if you get duplicates, you bust.
And it's so hard not to want to go on those big numbers, because like, okay, if there's 12 12s, yeah, that's scary, but a 12 is 12 points, and I want points.
Yep.
And what if I just get an 11? That's a lot of points. So you just keep trying to press your luck to get those big numbers, but you got to watch out, because if there's 10 10s in the deck, you might get that 10th one. You never know.
Yep. This is, once again, a push your luck. So it's a game for me. I enjoy playing. However, I'm terrible at it. And that's okay. You can be terrible at a game.
Well, because it's very ink and gold for you, where it's just, I got to stay. I got to stay.
I want the biggest score I can possibly get. And
Like-
I'll find a way to do that. And then I never do.
It's like score or bust. Stay or bust.
The goal of this game is to get 200 points. And even if you run the table with your full set, you're getting like 70 to 80 points. I think it's better in this game to aim for about 30 to 40 points around and stay alive.
Yeah.
If you get knocked out with 2 draws and you're out, that's just bad luck.
Yeah, because there are some special cards in the game. There's a freeze card, which means that you could potentially freeze
What do you
yourself.
think this goes?
I
I
don't
think it
know.
goes Circle the Hill.
Or you could freeze another player, which
We're going
means
by the
they
guy
are
with the
out for
cloak.
that round. You could get a second chance card, which means if you bust and got 2 cards later on, you have 1 save. You can get a flip 3, which means either yourself or another player would have to flip 3 cards in a row. Or there's multipliers and addition cards. So say you have a good amount of points going and you go times 2, you get that multiplier. You can make a lot of points.
Our path turns to dirt here.
Oh. More ducks in the lake.
Remember when it snowed like a week and a half ago? Still wearing a sweater, but I really don't need to.
Yeah.
Pull up my sleeves a bit.
Yeah, with all those kind of specialty cards and chances to, play them against others or choose them for yourself, I think that really changes the game. And the player count, I feel, makes a difference too, because you just have more chances and opportunities for cards to come out. Because we played
Yeah, you get to see what other things are coming out.
Yeah, we played it with just a simple 4-player, but we also played it a lot more like on BGA.
Yeah,
And,
on BGA it's an alpha, so it might not be available for public yet.
yeah, it was
Time you're
definitely
watching
a
this.
fun time to get to the table playing with friends, and it's just a good pressure luck game.
Yep. I like this one. I gave it a 7.1.
See?
Oh, look, there is a path up there.
Ooh, 7.2. We're right on track.
It's an awful day in the neighborhood when you gotta play Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood Game.
Oh.
This game, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood Game, is all about stealing, which Mr. Rogers loved to do, as we know. He was like, listen, kids, you must steal from your neighbors.
Like, but Mr. Rogers, that doesn't sound right.
It doesn't sound right, and it isn't right, because in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood Game, you steal from your neighbor's hands, and you're trying to build up your hand until you either find a stop card or until you choose to stop stealing from people. We're going downhill, pretty extreme. For this city. This flat city. We found a hill.
Yay!
So yeah, in this game, you're trying to make 3 sets of 3 and put them in front of you, but there's many ways to break that. You can always put down a card that can steal from other people's sets to make this game even longer. I mean, you could play this game infinitely.
It felt like it was just going and going and going. I'm like, golly, is anyone ever going to be able to play any cards? Because the thing is with the row of cards, you must play at least 3 before you even have a chance to play 1 card. Once a stop card comes out, or you choose to stop taking more cards from others, then you can play cards as your 3 sets. But if you just keep on getting that stop card over and over and over and over every single time before you even get to 3 cards out, you just keep taking cards into your hand and then hoping the next time you could actually play one. And I think that's what really hurt it for me and how I felt playing the game. Is like, am I ever gonna get to play a card? Every time it felt like stop. Like, well, I'm gathering a bunch of cards, but nothing's going out in the tableau. So it just kept like infinite, over and over stop. And that's not a good feeling. It was not a good feeling playing it. And, I would look at the pictures and be like, oh, I love Mr. Rogers growing up. This is nostalgia. It's, it's Mr. Rogers, and it's, the queen and the king and the prince and the, all the little characters that you remember from the show. But then that's only part of it, and the artwork is one thing, but the actual playing of the game was like, this is not what I wanted when I thought I'm gonna play a Mr. Rogers Neighborhood Game. This is not what I had in mind.
Nah, it wasn't very fun. For that reason, I gave it like a 5.4.
Ooh, you were generous. Mine was down in the 4s.
Well, yours skews lower than mine.
Yeah, mine was at a 4.2, and that was just because, I really wanted to enjoy it. I really wanted to love it.
There's not a lot to love here, but what we can love is they did an okay job with the art.
Mm-hmm.
I think there could be a game there, just not for 5 players, maybe for 2.
Amazing.
But the
box art was
stealing
nice.
really just makes this game last way, way, way too long.
Yeah, it's like you look at that box, you're like, oh, look, Mr. Rogers' cute red coat. And,
Run, Mr. Rogers, get out of the neighborhood.
no!
Look at this lovely sea. Sure would be a shame if there were some sea dragons in there.
Ooh.
Or lake dragons.
Ooh, yep, lake dragons.
Sea Dragons is a game we played. To me, it looks nice on the table, but honestly, they could have been cubes. It could have been...
But I like that it wasn't.
It could have been like Yinch-like pieces, because it's an abstract game, really. You have 4 quadrants of the board. You're fighting for majority in those, but at the same time, you're also placing sea dragons in some sort of polyomino shape dictated by the 2 cards that you have a choice of. Take notes. Rebirth, 2 choices. That would have made that game way better. Anyway, that's for Rebirth.
Yep.
So for sea dragons, yeah, you're just putting out a sea dragon. You can't touch a sea dragon that you've already had. And you're scoring by collecting boats that are on the board. And these boats, they're not very plentiful. There are very few on the board. But it's fine. It's an abstract game. I like abstract games. I like Glucks. That is one that's high on my list, so I wouldn't be, you know, I could see it being the same weight as that.
You know, I really like polyomino games, so I liked that part of it, because trying to figure out where to place your dragons onto the board and how is that going to not mess up any other movements, because like you just mentioned, you can't put your dragon next to another one of your dragons. So you have to make sure you're not going to mess yourself up later by putting yourself somewhere you can't place.
The sea dragons. Walk ahead of me a little bit. There you go. Continue.
Yeah. And also, at the end, majorities matter per quadrant. So if you put all your dragons in one area but none in the other, you won't score any points for that quadrant. And pieces matter too in the case of a tie. So if you had 2, someone else had 2,
a little bit. Yeah.
then pieces would matter.
Continue.
So, you know, there were some times where I was like, well, I could easily put this one dragon in this spot and it wouldn't mess up anything else. But later on down the line, I might have only put a 3 and somebody else put a 5.
Looks like something from Lord of the Rings.
Ooh.
There it is. Ooh, fancy.
Nice.
Nice root work tree.
And so there's a lot to think about, but it has a really simple feel to it as far as taking turns and placing dragons out and keeping grid work correct, gathering up little boats as possible. If you get stuck in a whirlpool, yeah, you might have to pay some gold to get yourself out of harm's way, but then you could also gain more gold later down the line. So, you know, there's some give and take throughout the game, which makes it enjoyable. And I really liked the theme. I liked that it was dragons. I was like, yes, like Nessie.
Not enough games about dragons.
But this one's about Cedra, like Nessie. Her own.
I think 5 was too much for us to play with. I would like to see this. I'd play it again at like 3. I don't know though. I wonder how much that shrinks the board. We didn't see a setup for anything smaller than the 5 we were playing with. So if that shrinks the board, then, you know, then I'm a fan.
Yeah. So I gave that one a 7, just a straight out solid 7. I enjoyed it. I would definitely play it again. It would even be one that if I saw it randomly at like a, you know, flea market at a con or saw it for sale used or something, if it's a good enough price, I might pick it up. It's one that I would definitely play and want to play. Is whenever you have so many games, it's like you have to be very choosy.
We got to be
what you bring in. But I mean,
like over 600 games. We got to be really picky. I gave this one a 6.7.
Well, it's not too far off.
It's not too far off, but on my scale, you got to be over a 7 for me to consider you to be in the collection. Even then, the way I usually do it is if it's an 8 or over, then you really got my attention as far as BGG scales go.
And mine's usually at a 7. Mine's like a 7 or above. I'm on board. So
I'm on board to play it, but to own it,
it would be something fun. Maybe if you just happen to find it cheap at like a little flea market, it wouldn't be bad to own if you just know you're gonna
shelf space.
Play. Yeah, it is
How
kind
much
of a
do you
bigger
value
box.
shelf space? I value it way more than I did when I first started this hobby. But let me know how you value it. Much like we're walking in this unknown area to us and to you, the next game we played is Planet Unknown. But this time we played with the Supermoon expansion. My first experience with Planet Unknown was at Dice Tower 2 years ago. First time playing it, I backed it immediately. It had the Game Found crowdfunding campaign going on, so I knew that going into it. I was like, all right, if I like it, I'm gonna back it. Well, I liked it, so I backed it. And the Supermoon, well, we could talk all about that, but what was your impression of Planet Unknown?
Yeah, so my first time playing it was on BGA. And when I play a game on BGA, a lot of the times, if I really do enjoy it enough, I want to play it at the table. I want to make sure the table experience is just as good, if not better, than what I experienced digital. And so having some kind of previous knowledge of it, but then also being able to see it laid out on the table was a really good first impression for me. I love space-themed games, anything with moons and planets and those really nice blue colors. on the board. Like, it really was a eye catcher on the table for me. I liked the look, I liked the gameplay. There are some pros and cons to playing at the table versus on BGA. You know, a lot of things on the computer might do things for you instead of you having to constantly be the one to like setting it up or making movements and stuff like that. But I really did enjoy it. Like, it's the kind of game, like, it's another polyomino game that I really do just love. Polyomino games, like, I love that style. I love figuring out how everything can fit and mesh and create the right pattern. So it was a really enjoyable experience for me. Like, I loved the playthrough of it. I love the look of it. And I love that we went through all kinds of different expansion modules to try to figure out, okay, what do we want to use in the future? And what do we not need to take out the box?
Yeah, this game should stay simple. The modules, for the most part, are not required. I think the best form of the game, honestly, might be base game. Adding the supermoon is a nice way to throw away pieces, but at the same time, I feel like it just created more bloat, if anything. This game should be really tight towards the end. You should be losing points. With all the modules that we played with, we didn't lose any points. We filled up the board. That shouldn't be possible in Planet Unknown.
The only thing that I lacked at the end, that I lost out on a bunch of points, was the goals. The goals at the end. Your overall, like, everybody play for it goals, because there are some times where it's like, well, if they contradict each other, or I wasn't quite getting the map built, like if I want to make these points, I can't put that piece there, or there's a spot that's going to have a hole. And if you have a hole, you don't get those points. So I missed out on a lot of the goals at the end. Mm-hmm. But other than that, we really were on par, same points, pretty much up until those end goals, because we worked on the moon just about the same, worked on the planet just about the same.
Yep. If you want a roundup of what our favorite modules are from that, just post it in the comments below, because it's a lot to go through. Mm. So I'll just say Planet Unknown, at its finest, I would give it a 7.4, I think.
Oh, I said 7.5.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was leaning between 5 and 4. I think 4. Honestly, maybe the expansions may have hurt it a little bit for me, because I mentioned earlier that an 8 would be like a buy, and it felt like an 8 when I played it at Dice Tower. And now that I played it this way, in a game where you can do anything you want, all of a sudden what's the point?
Yeah, it's almost like
it's like living forever. Who wants to live forever?
Yeah. It's almost like you need limitations. Like, there's something about having so many different options with the modules and the different expansion parts that you just always have, oh, well, I could do this or I could do that. And you don't have to worry about, oh, but if I take this, I'm going to lose these points. Well, maybe there should be some kind of something driving you to make the hard choices. So maybe some limitations should be known in a Planet Unknown.
Next, we played a game from Matthew Dunstan, who we've mentioned before in the top 10 designers. I mentioned him before when talking about Merchants of... God, I hate that name. Merchants of...
The Guild Merchants
Explorers. Yeah, that name is not great. But the game is. And this other game from Matthew Dunstan is called Monumental. It's a game from Funforge. It's a deck building game, but it has quite a few twists. It's a deck building game built around dudes on a map, civilization type of game, where you got a bunch of hexes on the board. You're moving around them doing various things. But at its core, you're limited by the deck building aspects. But they do this a little differently. Your city is what they call your hand. Your hand is built of a 3x3 grid. You can only use one row, one column, so therefore you're only really using 5 cards at at the start anyway. You might have abilities to use more. That's pretty much in a nutshell what it is.
Yeah. So for me, when I hear deck builder, and see, that is first and foremost one of my into the hobby game style was deck building. When I hear that, I think of a traditional 10 cards in hand, you draw out 5, you play those cards, you discard them, you pick them back up. Huh?
10 cards in hand.
Well, sometimes you start out with 10 cards, so you have like your 7 of one, your 3 of another in the deck, and then
in the deck.
And then you're going to grow and grow and grow, and it's a typical deck builder. Well, this is not by any means a typical deck builder game with the grid and the having to make the columns and rows make sense to you. AP was hitting me out the wazoo of trying to figure out, well, if I do this, but now I don't want that card, and if I add in this, I can't do that. And I know it wouldn't be very much different if you just drew them randomly in your hand, but I don't know, seeing all the options out was system overload for me. It was too much seeing all the card options, but knowing I can only pick 5. And now which 5 you're gonna pick. And then if you pick those, then
that's the game.
It's also area control. So it's not just deck building, it's also then area control. And if you don't get enough, you can't move the people, then you're stuck, then you can't buy from the row, because it's also buying for the market, just like a typical deck builder. But I think it was just so much amassing too much all at me at once that I just wasn't handling it well.
I'll
had
say.
a very traumatic...
It really soured my experience.
Oh, I had a traumatic, emotional, distraught time playing this game, which really makes me upset, not just as a gamer, but then also like, I like his other game, the Merging Sport. That is a good game. And so like to just really kind of almost throw so much not interest into like my experience with this one, it kind of soured my mood on just overall the game experience, and then that made your experience upsetting. So there was just something about it that really hurt me emotionally by having so much overwhelming, like, well, my AP is really hitting me, and I felt like there were some times where I couldn't make a good decision, and because of that there was not happy vibes to be felt, in the most polite way to say it.
Yeah. That put a damper on my experience.
Yeah, and I felt bad about that, and I was very like, I still am very apologetic about that, because it really put a sour mood in the end of the week, because I wanted the end of, you want the end of the week to be like, yay, we played all these games and we did all these awesome things, and then
I will say I won, but I was not congratulated. I was scorned.
well,
I was attacked for about 30 minutes for winning. How do you feel about a sour...
I congratulate you now for winning, because you did win. I was just being a sore loser. I'll admit that. I was being a sore loser.
You play with a sore loser. How do you handle sore losers? Let me know. I'm asking for a friend.
I will say this. It's not like I would never play the game again, because I want redemption. I want a feeling of redemption. I want to feel like I can let that terrible experience go past me, put it in the past, and start anew. Now, I ranked it a 5 because to me, it is neither good or bad at this point for me personally. Not to say that the game is probably at a level of being ranked a 5, but for me, I can't decide if it's good or bad. I need redemption. I need to play it again, and then maybe hopefully playing it a second time through with a more open mind as to what I'm getting myself into, I can appreciate it better. Because really that's what we need to do as gamers, is to appreciate the creation that has been made for us to play.
Yeah, I mean, not all creations are deserving of that. We have, thousands and thousands of games coming out every year. They're not all bangers. So this one, I only gave like a 6.9. It's not a strong Civ game. I think it's better as a deck builder because it does something new. But the things that are going on the map aren't that interesting to me. They call it battle or something. It's not really a battle. It's check the numbers. Do you have 6 people? Great, you can go in that place that also has 6 people. There's no defense. anything like that.
A typical battle and win kind of scenario, so you don't feel like you've even had a chance to really have like a quote unquote battles. Like, how can you call it battle? That is just like just have more people. It's literally have more people movement.
Or the same amount.
Because they even with the, like, it shows like a battle red, but when I felt like I was battling, I was like, well, that's not really battle, that's just moving. I'm just moving.
I mean, I think they did it just for speed.
Yeah.
But even with that in mind, it does stay on the table a bit long. So you got to play with somebody who can make quick decisions, because your turn's already going to be long enough using all 5 cards in a combo-rific way. As far as a deck builder, it's pretty good. As far as a Civ game, it's not that great.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I gave it whatever I gave it, 6.9. So that's everything we played this week. Were there any games on that list that you enjoyed? What'd you think of these backgrounds? Should we stay here or find a new place to go? I mean, they're all pretty good here. It's just there's so few, but if you have a walk path, something for us to keep in mind. We're going to Dice Tower this summer. Oh, I don't know what we're going to do in the summer, by the way. It's going to be just hot.
Ooh, it's going to be hot.
You really want to watch us sweating out here?
We might have to go find some indoors. Maybe we'll go to the mall.
Check out this mall.
Walk around
Ooh,
in
the
the
Orange
mall.
Julius.
Keep cool in the summer.
Yeah, but hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up. And until next time, the box is closed.